Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Politics over the Tawang skirmish refuses to die. Parliament has witnessed a massive showdown yet again today. Congress is up in arms. Along with the rest of the opposition, it walked out from the upper house of the Parliament today demanding a discussion on the floor of the Parliament over the Tawang clash between India and Chinese shoulders. Congress is accusing the centre of hiding facts and downplaying the Arunachal border clash. The BJP has also launched a counter-attack of sorts on the Congress MP Rahul Gandhi over his pitai comments at the army, seeking an apology from the Congress leader. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, in fact, hit out at the Congress leader over his comment and said, no matter what, the word pitai should not be used for our Jawans. The External Affairs Minister said, our Jawans don't deserve such language and they should be respected and appreciated. On that, there can be little debate. And while the Congress closes ranks and defends its biggest face, there can be little defense of projecting that Indian soldiers are being thrashed at the border at this time or any other time. But at a time when we could have had bipartisan consensus, even a debate on the China threat and India's answer to it, there is only political back and forth going on. The Tawang clash has become a subject of utter politics, and no one side can be blamed completely for that. Can we not come together at an hour like this? This is a question we've been asking through the last week. We'll take that to our guests in just a bit. For a second week running, Parliament has been stalled post the Tawang clash. Inside and outside, the government and opposition continue to clash, and here is what both sides are saying. Remember, the Congress has attacked the centre, saying that they are running away from discussion in the Parliament, which should be the natural course of action, given the severity and the seriousness of the issue. But the BJP has gone on to say that the Defence Minister has already given a full statement in Parliament, and therefore there is no need to further debate this issue. The Congress further alleged that the centre is deliberately hiding facts on border situation. Now, that's a very serious charge. The government has countered, saying that the Congress should stop politicizing a sensitive border issue like this. Congress also raised the issue of China building massive infrastructure, other structures at the LAC. Now, this was an easy retort for the BJP that the Congress is the one that delayed construction of projects along the LAC, and that's why India is catching up to China. Finally, on Rahul Gandhi's pitai comment, as I mentioned, the face-off continued both inside and outside. Congress remarked, why such furor and cry over Rahul's statement? The top government ministers also attacked the Congress and its MP, its former president, saying Rahul keeps disrespecting our Jawans. Amidst the hangama over the Tawang clash, there is a significant statement that has come in from the Dalai Lama, backing India as his spiritual home. Importantly, he has said that there is no point in returning to China. I prefer India. He said he prefers staying in Kangra, Pandit Nehru's choice. India, a perfect place and my permanent residence, he said. But he did say that he feels things are improving as far as world relationships are concerned in Europe, Africa and Asia, and that even China has become more flexible. But given China's claim over Tibet, the significance of why China, for example, claims areas in Arunachal Pradesh, including Tawang, because of its significance in Buddhist religion and culture, the Dalai Lama choosing India at this hour is significant diplomatically for us. And last evening came some other important statements from the Prime Minister related to this issue. Because when we speak of Northeast conflict with China, we often talk of the infrastructure disparity, why India lags here and more. The Prime Minister attacked former governments for their failure to develop Northeast India. He said, and I quote, previous governments to blame for underdevelopment. He went on to say, previous governments did not believe in developing the Northeast. Unlike predecessors, we are fearlessly building infrastructure, he added. Once isolated border villages are now being made vibrant. The focus is on Vikas, not Vivad, like previous governments. And this is, of course, one of those issues that has given a handle to the BJP to hammer the Congress on, because their former defence minister was on record to say that there is no point developing infrastructure at the LAC. So along with these two facets of the Dalai Lama statement, the Prime Minister on Northeast development, the top focus coming up in our debate number one, is the Tawang clash not being used for politics, and by whom? We'll take that to our guests in just a bit.
चाइना ये बहुत बड़ा महत्व का विषय है। अगर ये चर्चा नहीं करेंगे, चर्चा को अगर अवकाश देंगे, फिर किसको देंगे?
जब यूपीए की सरकार थी, तब ऐसे सेंसिटिव विषयों पे चर्चा नहीं की जाती थी और क्लैरिफिकेशन भी नहीं मांगा जाता।
स्क्वायर किलोमीटर हिंदुस्तान का उठा लिया, जवानों को शहीद किया, जो हमारे जवानों को अरुणाचल प्रदेश में पीट रहे हैं।
कम से कम वो लोग तो प्रश्न ना उठाएं जो डोकलाम की घटना के समय किनके साथ पाए गए, किन देश के लोगों से उन्होंने फंडिंग ली। राहुल जी, क्या चाइना के अधिकारियों के साथ आप थे?
At 13,000 feet, they are standing there defending our borders. They do not deserve to have the word pitai. The word pitai should not be used for our jawans.
संपूर्ण विपक्ष सदन में उठाए, उसके बाद भी 1 मिनट इस पर चर्चा न करे सरकार, तो समझ लेना चाहिए दाल में ही काला नहीं है, बल्कि पूरी दाल काला।
I want to go across to our guests joining us. We've got, of course, both the BJP and the Congress representatives. R.P. Singh from the BJP, Swati Malik from the Congress. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow, ORF, is also joining us on the larger issue of the India-China conflict. Major General Sanjay Meston, Defence Analyst, former Defence Attaché in Embassy of India, Kabul and Afghanistan, also join us on the show. Let me first go across to Swati Malik. Swati, I want your response on what Piyush Goyal, for example, said, that at such a sensitive time and on such a sensitive issue, the opposition shouldn't be demanding a full-fledged debate or even a clarification given the sensitivity of the issue. Your response to that?
Shivani, we have always been asking for a discussion. We understand there is secrecy, there's confidentiality involved because it's a very sensitive issue. But that does not mean we cannot even be briefed. The parliament needs to be briefed, and it can't be a one-way dialogue only. Yes, the minister came and he gave a statement, but there are questions that the opposition wants to ask. So if those, at least hear out our questions, at least then tell us that this can't be answered because of confidentiality, we will respect it. But you can't just say that charcha hogi nahi, there can be no discussion at all. That is our anguish right now.
Okay, I'll take that to R.P. Singh, the point that you're making, but one of the other accusations against the Congress is that, you are politicizing this issue. The reason why you're asking for this so-called discussion is because you want to hammer the government at this stage on their China policy, on infrastructure, as if none of this used to happen when the Congress was in power. It used to happen even in UPA era time, just recently, and obviously we know the historical aspect. The second charge is that you are not letting Parliament function. You're even walking out after the Defence Minister's statement. So on what pedestal do you stand when you say you want discussion? Swati.
Shivani, when you will not let the discussion happen, what is the point of this Parliament? Then they should just issue a paper. It should be a one-way communication. Parliament means democracy. Democracy means there will be a discussion, right? So you cannot just keep saying no to everything. We wanted to, if you remember last time, we wanted to discuss and debate about inflation. We wanted to talk about, other various unemployment, other issues. Then also we were shut down. So any question being put forth to the government for discussion in the Parliament is being shut down. Not only this time when you want to ask about the strategy on China, where there are multiple questions, and we keep having these these press briefs as well, where we are asking questions to the government about its policy on China. Those questions have not been answered in the one-way dialogue.
No, the other question I asked you was that you are being accused that you're kind of using the Tawang clash for your politics, for your domestic politics, not really because you care so much about what's happening with China. Swati.
No, Shivani, we definitely care about what's happening with China, and we have been voicing our thoughts, and Mr. Rahul Gandhi himself has been voicing and warning about China, not just now. This is not the first time he's raised an issue about China. He's been raising it for the last 2-3 years. And yes, when you say that we are politicizing it, that is extremely incorrect. We are not politicizing it. We are sharing our concerns, and that is a part of an opposition.
But Swati, naturally the counter that comes to you, for example, you raised Rahul Gandhi. Now Rahul Gandhi is once again in hot soup because of the language he has used over the Tawang issue, saying कि हमारे जवानों को पीट रहे हैं. I'll come to that later. But you're saying that the Congress is so aware of the Chinese threat, yet under you, the LAC was never developed. Under you, there were massive backlogs in our defense requirements. Under you, the Congress signed an MOU with the CCP. Imagine, despite the threat of the Chinese. Under you, you were seen, in fact, I would use the phrase caught, because you were denying in earlier of having a dinner with the Chinese diplomats. So on what, again, with what moral high ground is the Congress saying we are the ones who were warning you?
Please tell me, and please ask the BJP spokesperson to answer a few questions I'm going to ask. Who was the one who developed the 2,000 kilometers of Trans-Arunachal highway? Who was the one who developed that? Who was the one who developed the Itanagar railway station? Who was the one who developed 6 grounds for landing in Arunachal Pradesh? Who was the one who started, and Shivani, this is a very responsible question, and who was the one who started Mountain Strike Corps, and who was the one who struck it down? Who struck down the Mountain Strike Corps? Please ask the BJP that.
Okay.
It was the UPA that started those, that was Manmohan Singh ji's government, and before that in the 7th plan in 1986, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, the Prime Minister that time, that is when it was taken, and that is when the Operation Falcon also happened. Right? So
okay, fair enough. But you didn't answer my question on the bonhomie of the Congress and the CCP, including donations to the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. If China is such a great enemy of ours, why should you be even indulging with them? But I'll come to that in just a bit. Let me go take those questions to RP Singh. RP Singh, this is the question I asked you earlier too, last week. Why can't there be at least a measured debate on this issue in Parliament? Is the opposition not right in asking, if we don't do a back and forth, a question and an answer on the floor of the Parliament, then when do we do it? Where do we do it?
Shivani, what was the question being asked in the Parliament about the deployment of the beaches in the border? Is this the question to be answered in the Parliament? Is this the level of the debate for the security apparatus to be discussed in the Parliament? So, are they speaking for the country, or are they speaking on behalf of some other country, trying to understand the deployment of the breaches in the border? I mean, this is the question which was raised. So, but the problem which you still ask them, they didn't answer that. That what language do you use for the armed forces? Are you there to demoralize the armed forces? Are you there to ensure that armed forces stay put and then their moral are high? When you say pite, hamare jawan pite, I seriously doubt that he was talking about the Indian Jawans. I think he was talking about the PLA, because he represents PLA more than the Indian Army.
I'll come to Rahul Gandhi in just a bit, RP Singh, but Rahul Gandhi or the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation cannot be the BJP's stock responses to what has happened now. At least I agree, and I think Swati is also agreeing that there are sensitive issues involved, but at least have some measure of discussion or debate. It doesn't have to involve national secrets.
I just answered you that if they ask you about the deployment and the breaches in the Parliament, this is the question asked by Mr. Manish Tiwari, that what is the deployment of the armed forces at the border, at the Arunachal border? How to answer that, and what answer do you expect? That's why Defence Minister issued a statement, and that was enough to clarify all the situation, that not an inch of land has been occupied, and also that our armed forces have ensured that the Chinese are sent back. And then this is not the first time the breach has happened. I mean, you please tell them how many times the breach happened during their regime. But never at any given time we made some noise. And it was Manmohan Singh ji's time when it was said in the Parliament that we can't discuss it more than what is being discussed in the Parliament. So, it's the parliamentary system that there are certain issues which have discussed in a particular manner, and certain things have to be revealed and certain things not to be revealed. But
okay,
yes,
can I take Swati's response on that?
Can I complete?
Okay.
And we are open for any discussion in Parliament as per the law of the Parliament. Not
Meaning?
That you disrupt Parliament and you walk out of the Parliament and then you say, oh, we want to discuss this, we want to discuss that. But then you stay in the Parliament, stay put in the Parliament. Don't walk out of the Parliament.
Okay, Swati, on the sensitivity of the questions, before I go across to our experts too, is that not a fair argument that you cannot be asking these questions that the government can't reveal in Parliament?
Shivani, there were various other questions also that were to be asked but were not permitted to. For example, we also wanted to ask why is the government still choosing to increase trade with China? The trade deficit has increased from 36 billion to 73 billion now, from 2014 to 2022. We want to discuss these questions too. We wanted to discuss why is the government not listening to their own member of parliament. The Arunachal Pradesh member of parliament from BJP has been screaming, shouting in the parliament, asking for action to be taken. I'm sure we all heard that speech when he spoke in the parliament. Why is the BJP not even listening to its own member of parliament?
Okay, let RP Singh respond very quickly. Then I open this up to our other panelists as well. Especially the question on trade. Now, this is an issue I have discussed on this show. Mr. Meston was with me, and I have talked about the situation vis-a-vis trade. We can run some of that information. And I believe today there was a statement by a union minister on toys, for example. Now, in the toys industry, the dependence on Chinese-made products has come down, in fact, and more of the Indian manufacturers are being, promoted. But there are some other key industries where you cannot decouple yourself from China just overnight. It is a long process. But anyways, please respond, RP Singh, that there are other questions the Congress has, but you're not allowing a debate only. You have flatly refused that there can be a discussion on this.
Okay. On the trade part, I have to just add one more part, that how much percentage was the increase in the trade during their regime and what is there in our regime? 346% increase in their regime, and ours is only 100%. They don't appreciate this, and there are industries which have been purely shut, totally shut for Chinese. Toy is one of those industries, and then there are many more which are laughing. But coming to the subject, if they're talking about the discussions in the parliament, I'm saying we are open to any discussion in the parliament which is as per the parliamentary norm. But they have to discuss it in the parliament. They don't have to walk out of the parliament. They don't have to create ruckus in the parliament. And also, when they say we wanted to discuss what you put in the parliament, we'll see that only when you say where are the forces deployed. I mean, what are you asking?
Okay.
How many forces deployed? I mean, are these a question to be answered in the parliament? And then also, we are prepared. That's why the answer has been given back to the Chinese. They have got a very befitting answer and a bloody nose as far this latest Arunachal incident goes.
Okay, all right. Let me go to Sushant Sareen now. Sushant, I want your thoughts on the statement that has come in from the Dalai Lama. Of course, it is not something that we don't know of or where his mind is as far as his spiritual home is concerned. But how significant do you think his statement is in the context of what has happened?
Shivani, his statement is nothing out of the ordinary. I think he's always professed very nice sentiments for India. He's always called India his guru. Yeah. He's always called India his second home. He's always said that if I can't stay in Tibet, then the only place in the world I would want to stay in is India. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing out of the ordinary as far as his statement is concerned. Of course, in the context in which his statement has been made, the broader context, you can attach whatever meaning you want to this. But I think as far as the Tibetans are concerned, I think their loyalties are very clear that they are not with the Chinese. And I think even India has now stopped, attaching Tibet to China, really.
In fact, that was going to be my second question, that a lot of people say that, given the aggression and the belligerence from the Chinese, claiming full states in India, why is it that the Indians don't press China on the Tibet issue more? Do you think time has come for that? We'd still play it a little bit safe.
I think we will continue to play it a little safe as long as there's something to save in whatever the remains of the relationship with China. But if this relationship goes further south, then I think everything will be up for grabs. You might even see relations being restored with Taiwan, full diplomatic relations. You might see India simply not accept that Tibet is a part of China. But, as long as there is something to be saved in the relationship, you don't want to push it over the edge. But if the Chinese push the relationship over the edge, then everything is open for question. So I think that's the trajectory in which we are going to go.
And what do you think, watching China, watching what they're continuing to do at some of the toughest times for them, COVID period and then post-COVID period, do you believe that the Chinese are no longer interested in improving the relationship with India and they're deliberately downgrading this relationship?
Quite clearly, I think that message is pretty clear.
So what do we do now?
Nothing. We have to resist it. What else can we do? We will resist it to the extent it is possible. We will go to the maximum extent possible to resist it. I think it's very clear that what the Chinese want is that India should become a kind of a vassal state, a subservient state, something they can push around, whose territory they can grab at will depending on what paranoia they feel at what point of time. Something that needs a country which needs to be cut down to size, because it's probably the only country in the whole of Asia which has the potential, which has the numbers, which has the strength, which has the landmass to
match
challenge
China.
China
Yeah.
or to stand up, as a competitor to China. So they want to cut it down to size. Now, I think anybody who does not see this for what it is living in cloud cuckoo land. And I think there are many people in India, especially on the left of the political divide, the leftists, the communists, who actually claim that China is the greatest benefactor India will ever have. Now, if you are in that mode, then of course nothing needs to be said.
Okay.
But if you really want to protect India's interests, then I think the writing on the wall is very clear that China is a hostile power, it's an enemy country, but you still have some relations going with them. And maybe if you have time, I'll talk a little bit upon the trade and the economic relationship, because I feel very strongly about it. But I think a lot of the way the questions are being raised about the trade relationship, I think those questions are ill-informed and they muddy waters much more than they clear the waters.
Actually, I did a full debate on trade, the military infrastructure and other infrastructure, and also diplomacy when it comes to tackling with a belligerent China. If I have time, I'll give you more time, Sushant sir, on that. But I want to go across to our defense expert, Major General Meston, as well. Sir, in fact, you were on that debate last week when we discussed all these threats from China. Today, specifically, in the context of what the Prime Minister has said, in the context of what you were telling us, specifically of the infrastructure thrust in the Northeast, I want your thoughts. Is it fair to accuse the current Indian dispensation of not doing enough in this regard, which is one of the charges from the Congress party?
Shivani, firstly, what I would like to highlight that whatever the Indian Armed Forces is doing and whatever is happening on the border should definitely not be politicized. That is point one. Secondly, the fact of the matter is that issues are being raised that these issues should be debated in Parliament. I, as a soldier, would not subscribe to it. Reason being because there are confidential, secretive issues which cannot be made public. Even if they have to be discussed, yes, there are certain things which need to be discussed. For example, a point raised, what should be a strategy with China? Yes, that can be discussed, but not in Parliament. There can be closed-door sessions. You have to have representatives from the army and the MEA and of course the
there's also a defense parliamentary standing committee. I'm sure all of these issues can come up there.
Absolutely, and wherever doubts are there, a JPC is constituted which can go and ground and verify the things rather than these things being politicized. Now, coming on to infrastructure. See, what I would like to highlight is that infrastructure has been an ongoing process, and since last 20-30 years, to just quote you an example, our first and foremost requirement is if there is a war or if there is a conflict, Indian Army has to fight from some place, and those places are on the watershed, and therefore to fight we have to have weapons, we have to have logistics, and more important is we have to have permanent bunkers. So those have been going on since last 20-30 years, and in that place we have done a remarkable job irrespective of the governments. The Indian Army has been given due support from each and every government. Now, coming on to the road construction, yes, the road construction has been going on. For example, the Rohtang tunnel or the Atal tunnel now, which is referred to, or even the Zojila tunnel. I think Rohtang tunnel was conceived by Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 2000, and Zojila was conceived a little earlier. So what I'm trying to say is, it's an ongoing process because the army gives us demand. But yes, as a soldier, I would like to highlight that in the last few years, in fact, after 2017, the Doklam clash, we have been really speeding up the infrastructure development at a very, very rapid pace. And I have no doubts on that account. As a soldier, I can say with authority and firmness that infrastructure development all along the borders has been given tremendous impetus.
Okay.
For example, even this Sela tunnel, which is being constructed, I think it was conceived way back in 2017, and I think by this year end or next year it will be inaugurated. So it's been done very rapidly. Full delegation of powers has been given, so that I will substantially. I would like to highlight that yes, the BRO has been given a lot of flexibility. Correct agencies have been used. To quote a point, when the Zojila tunnel was to be made, I recollect that time when I was myself in the operations directorate in the army headquarters, private parties were not even going to go to those places to construct the road because of security concerns. But once I think Nitin Gadkari ji took over, the NSDL and all these kind of agencies have been put. So What I'm trying to say is it has been enforced on ground.
Okay.
On ground तो मैं हिंदी में बोलूंगा काम हुआ है, तो उसमें कोई शक नहीं है. तो
इसलिए हर चीज पे, हर बात पे गवर्नमेंट को अटैक करना या ये सिचुएशन बनाना कि आपका कोई डिफेंस ही नहीं है और आपने कोई तैयारी नहीं करी, ये शायद एक सही चीज नहीं है, क्योंकि डिफेंस अल्टीमेटली हम सबको इम्पैक्ट करता है. वी शुड नॉट प्ले पॉलिटिक्स ऑन दैट. देयर कैन ऑलवेज बी अ बैक एंड फोर्थ एंड सजेशंस गिवन. यस सुशांत, आई फाइनल मिनट्स. यू वर रेजिंग योर फिंगर, आई थिंक, ऑन द पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्कशन इन पार्लियामेंट.
Yeah, I'll make 3 very quick points, Shivani. First, I don't think you can ever divorce politics completely from anything in this country.
Sure.
Even national security, it will come in. It's only the manner in which the politics comes in, whether that politics is to improve the situation or to just muddy the waters. And unfortunately, the way it is being done right now, it is muddying the waters. Secondly, I don't think there's anything wrong in discussing these matters in Parliament. Of course, as somebody earlier also said, that there will be certain things which you can discuss openly. For example, what is your policy on China? What is your policy along the borders? That kind of stuff can be discussed openly without all details being given. But there will be other things which can be discussed in camera, taking other people into confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the opposition needs to act a little responsibly so that the government also feels that, yes, they have the confidence in the opposition and they can discuss these matters completely. And finally, I think it's very bizarre for anybody to ask about deployments along the borders. I mean, if you're going to start discussing deployments along the borders, are the people asking these questions competent to discuss deployments along the borders? I mean, even somebody in the defense ministry is not competent to discuss it. These are matters which are decided by the armed forces because they are the only people who know what needs to go where.
Okay.
The government can give a broad direction, nothing more. The opposition can talk about
the broad issue,
but to ask for deployments is bizarre.
Yeah, okay. Let me give Swati Malik an opportunity then. Is the Congress missing a trick when it comes to wanting a discussion? You're not really coming across that you don't have political interest in it. Even the questions that you're asking are something the government cannot answer.
Shivani, only if you were allowed to proceed further beyond that first question would have been the other questions would have followed. And those other questions have been asked in our press briefs. We have held press briefs where all those questions have been asked, but the government has not answered those even in that one-way communication in the parliament. And like Mr. R.P. Singh, when he said that, that Congress is insulting towards the Indian Army, not at all. That is not the intent. We respect the Indian Army. Value the Indian Army.
I discussed this as well, Swati. I know that you're the Congress spokesperson. You're possibly not going to accept this on TV. But there is a problem in the language that Rahul Gandhi used. It has done more harm to the position that the Congress party had adopted so far, which was more responsible than, let's say, what happened during Galwan, etc. But there is a problem. But unfortunately, you cannot take it back. You've got to dig in your heels. That's what it is. But I don't think there's a defense for what Rahul Gandhi said. I've run out of time. I have to give 30 seconds to R.P. Singh. R.P. Singh.
Well, I still remember in April 2013, the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said on record that don't discuss China. I mean, I was Googling, that's why I remember, so I was trying to just refresh my memory. He said said don't discuss China, it's a local issue. And it was the time when the Foreign Secretary said that China has come in 19 kilometers inside Indian territory. So there are certain issues which are tactical issues. So whenever you raise questions, please remember your history. How did you tackle the issues and what were the priorities at that time?
All right. The BJP reminding Congress of its own history. I thank all of our guests for joining us.